The Hawks want to see Trae Young and Jalen Johnson together before committing to their future. Is that smart? And also, there are some signs that the Mavs are up to something. What are they doing? Who's better, the Rockets or the Nuggets? A loaded Locked On NBA Game Night coming your way right now.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What's up, everybody? Happy late Tuesday/Wednesday, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA Game Night, where you get the latest and greatest from around the association. Eurobasket is coming. Games will return soon, but today, a lot still, as it's been all offseason, going on in the land of the NBA. I'm Tony East. I host Locked On Pacers. Danny Cunningham is here. You guys have never heard on this show. He hosts Locked On Cavs. We have a lot to get to. Mark Stein deep in the reporting on the Hawks and their future with Trae Young. The Mavs have agreed to sign Dante Exum, but haven't done it yet. Their roster's full. They might extend PJ Washington. What's going on there? And our weekly Wednesday, this or that, this time diving in to Houston and Denver. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day, your second listen, Locked On Women's Basketball for the latest in that world. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Danny, Mark Stein reporting for the Stein line that Trae Young, there's not a plan to extend him, has been reported by many people, including Jake Fisher, but Stein specifically says Atlanta wants to see more of Young playing alongside forward Jalen Johnson to get more clarity on their big picture plans. What do you think of what the Hawks are doing? Is that a good idea? Where is this heading for a team that everybody is really psyched about their offseason?
So I think it does make sense from one perspective, considering that Jalen Johnson only played 36 games last year before that shoulder injury cut short his season. And Johnson was, I think we could both agree, pretty good in the time he was on the floor. But Tony, I think the thing that this says to me, and I do think it's smart by the Atlanta Hawks, is we don't want to give Trae Young the max. I really think that's what everything with the Trae Young not having an extension and not having any extension talks on the table this summer, this all just screams to me, hey, we like you, Trae Young, but we don't love you, Trae Young. We don't want to give you the full amount of money that we could possibly give you, because if you look at the way that they've built this roster, I think they've done a fantastic job of surrounding Trae Young with guys that really can help to hide some of his deficiencies, particularly on the defensive end of the floor. But I think if you look at what some other teams across the NBA have done, and Houston is one that we will talk about a lot today, but they've done a great job of not overpaying guys. And it's not that Trae Young's not a really good basketball player, because he is, but is he somebody that is worth a max contract that could potentially be in line for a super max contract should he make an all-NBA team? I personally don't think so. And I think that's kind of where the Atlanta Hawks are too.
Yeah, they're in a tricky spot where, on one hand, great that they've made a ton of awesome transactions the last 2 years. Basically, outside of their first Terrence Mann trade with the Clippers, I can't think of a move they made that I thought was actively bad. They won the lottery. That's all great, right? But eventually, you'll have to pay Zach Ricochet. Kristaps Porzingis is a free agent next year. Like Trae Young's extension plus all that. Jalen Johnson is on a good contract, but it's still $30 million a year. Your team gets expensive at some point. You really want to know what you have. And they didn't get enough of that with Trae and Jalen last year when they were pretty good. Like, there were arguments from people that I think are smart. I disagree with them, but I get it, that Jalen Johnson was their best player last year, right? Like, I'm sure you saw some of that too, that he was certainly in the All-Star mix before, he got hurt. So he is quite good. I don't know that I buy that he's more impactful than Trae Young, but he is certainly a better defensive player. So how they fit together is certainly important, and especially so when they are a totally different looking team, right? Ricochet is way better than he was when Johnson got hurt last year. They have Kristaps Porzingis. They have Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They could be pretty good. It's a lot easier to be willing to commit a ton of financial resources to a team that, even if Trae and Jalen Johnson aren't like incredible together, is really good and should be really good for quite a few years.
So let me ask you this. Do you view what the Hawks did this offseason as betting on Jalen Johnson, what he did last year? Because he was really good in the 30-plus games he played. But do you view them as betting on him being not only as good as he was before that shoulder injury or better, or do you view that as a bet on Trae Young being able to be the face of a franchise? Because I could make the argument for the Hawks to really get to where they want to go to, considering the limitations that Trae Young has defensively. And he's a fantastic offensive player. I don't think that he necessarily is a good enough shooter from the outside to justify what his shot chart looks like at times. But I could make the argument that for the Hawks to reach their ceiling, they do need Jalen Johnson to be the guy that is the best player in Atlanta and not Trae Young.
Yeah, the question that I would like the Hawks to answer that question is, what do you do if you don't have Trae Young? Right? Like, are you trading Trae Young for a different point guard? Like, the optics of that and making your team really good doing that are weird. And then if they don't do that, you have no point guard now? Trae Young's just not on your team? Like, what actually just happened there? And so I think the answer is building around Trae mostly, right? And I think the reason that you could say that is when he pre-sickness, Porzingis was a good defender, if not great, for the Celtics last year, and he spaces really well. A hot Hawks take would be that he actually might not start for me. I think Okongwu might start, but he'll still fit really well with what they're doing. Nick Alexander-Walker's a defender. Like, they've added defensive players, and that's certainly Trae Young's biggest deficiency. So because there's like nothing for them to do to replace Trae Young, I think they will keep him in some way. And they're just trying to build around him in a way that makes it worth whatever financial commitment it takes. And I think they're kind of bracing for the fact that if they're good, that's going to have to be the max, right? Because you don't want that to get messy. What else is going to happen? He'll be unrestricted next year. There's not a lot of space, but there's way more than there was this year. So there's actual things that he could do. So I think it'll be fascinating to see how that plays out. But I think they've certainly built, like, they know that they basically have to keep trying. Not that that's a bad thing, but they want to know how good that truly is, because if it's not as good, it's a lot easier for them to say, hey, man, look, I get that you think you're with the max, but we won 44 games this year. Like, what are we doing?
But I also do think it depends on whether or not the Hawks view themselves as a team that can go into the tax. They are not a team that has been in the tax at all in recent memory. And if you give Trae Young a max contract, and if it does bump up to that super max, if he were to make an all NBA team, which I do think is a very real possibility, like, that's not a crazy thought that he could be second or third team all NBA this year. But is he worth that kind of money? Because then if you are the Hawks, you are a team that is going to be in the tax. And I'm just not sure that unless you're a championship caliber team, it's worth being in the tax or the first apron or the second apron. I don't know ultimately what their cap sheet would look like, because there are ways for them to potentially maneuver out of it. But I think that has to be one of the questions that you ask yourself if you're in charge in Atlanta, whether or not this is a group that is worth going into the tax and paying extra for.
Trae Young does have a player option for the season after this. But I think that he was very happy to see De'Aaron Fox get a ton of money. I'll say that because
I think Trae Young can go ahead and decline that option.
Yeah, I agree. $49 million is a lot of money, but the other factor here is he could opt in and extend off of that. Like, extensions have been the name of the game. If like that keeps the Hawks cheaper for 1 year, and then they can keep some other players like Porzingis and figure it out later. Like, that always is a way to go. But it's very tricky when a player is pretty good. Your team could be good, but you also only have kind of like one flash in the pan season, and you never know how stuff is going to come together. So look, I think that the Hawks are going to be pretty good this year. Trae Young's awesome, and the talent around him is pretty good, but I've thought that he was really good before, and they didn't even make the playoffs last year. So they have a lot of room to grow, and I get why the Hawks are doing this. They also could kind of go two timelines here. They have Risa, they have Okongwu, Nick Alexander-Walker's pretty young. Jalen Johnson is young. Porzingis is expiring. It's also very easy to pivot to a new era. So I get why they want all this clarity, even though I do think, to answer your question from earlier, they are building around Trae Young.
But I do think if you want to pivot to a new era, that doesn't involve letting Trae Young walk away.
No, I agree with that.
You are in Atlanta wanting to, and I don't think that's the direction they're ultimately going to go. And I don't think that's the direction they should go. I think Trae Young is a very good basketball player. But if they wanted to pivot to a new era, like, trading Trae Young has to be the thing that's on the table, not letting him walk in free agency for nothing, because he is not only a very valuable player on the floor, but I do think there are a lot of teams that would have maybe not like, I don't think you're going to get a king's ransom for Trae Young, because I do think he's been involved in trade talks at certain times before, and he's still on the Hawks. And I think that tells you a little bit about how the rest of the league has valued him. But I don't think that just letting him walk for nothing would be smart team building either.
Trade him in February if things aren't going well. Let Porzingis leave. All of a sudden, you have Asa Newell, Alexander Walker, Jalen Johnson, Zach Risa, and oh, by the way, that insane pick they got from the Pelicans and their own pick. All of a sudden, the Hawks are like, great, we're good on the young guys too. So
I mean, that had to be the best move this offseason. And easily. I thought they made a lot of really
good moves. That's why they're allowed
moves.
to do this with Trae, by the way, because they have an off ramp if they need it.
That's true. That's very true. I still Tony, I still cannot wrap my head around the fact that trade was made. Like, I still do not understand what the New Orleans Pelicans were thinking, sliding an unprotected first-round pick next year that is the better pick between them or the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, on FanDuel right now, and I don't know that it's available, what would a parlay be of the Bucks and the Pelicans to both make the playoffs? Like, I have to think that's pretty long shot.
Plus
So
like 10.
they essentially just have a lottery
No,
ticket,
that's too high.
number one overall pick.
Yeah, they have a great shot at a lottery pick, I would say. It's ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous.
It is.
Good for the Hawks. I think they're doing this correctly, even though it's the CBA requires you to get uncomfortable in this times, and we've seen everybody extends instead of free agency now. So this is kind of a meeting of new trends all coming together. Good for the Hawks making the right call. The Mavs, speaking of extensions, PJ Washington becomes extension eligible Friday. Should they do that in their confusing time? Because the Mavs certainly are 100% going to make another not inconsequential move this offseason. We'll explain why coming up here on Lockdown NBA Game Night. Before we get to that, though, we got to talk about Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can leave money on the table. That is where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface right on your laptop or phone. It's built for people with busy lives. If you've been putting off your finances, Monarch is for you. They do the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart characterization and categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Identify why you're not saving as much as you thought. They can see areas that you might be spending a lot, or they can see inefficient investment allocations. You can maximize those investments, increase your savings rate, chase your goals, and even review finances with a partner very easily. Do not let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKDOWNNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off your first year with monarchmoney.com and code LOCKDOWNNBA. We're back here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Locked On Cavs or Locked On Pacers for your second listen. If you want more from me or Danny, we both got married this year. We're mad that Travis Kelce is copying us, but being on a podcast together means
crazy.
Marriage is a thing, as we've learned from us, from you and your wife, from Travis and Taylor. And now we go to the Dallas Mavericks, who are interesting to me already for a reason I'll get to in a second. But Mark Stein, same report, I believe, as his one about Trae Young, includes PJ Washington, who is eligible for a contract extension this coming Friday. I believe that would be a certain threshold of time since his last transaction with the Mavs, or maybe when he signed with the Hornets on his last deal, is eligible for an extension. He's 27. I believe the max it could be is 4 years, $90 million. And Stein says it is likely to happen, though he does not say necessarily that it will be 4 years, $90 million. I think PJ Washington is good, Danny. I'm still kind of like, what should the Mavs be doing? Should they want to commit to all these vets in their front court long term? How does Cooper Flagg fit into this? What say you first about PJ Washington and the Mavs?
So I think that PJ Washington is a good player, right? I think that it's fair to say that he is a player that contributes to winning. He was a big piece of the team that went to the NBA Finals a couple of years ago, even if that team looks so drastically different right now than it did less than 24 months ago when Luka Doncic led that team to the finals. And I look at this extension. I don't think it's one that's necessarily going to be a painful one for the Mavericks, but I do think if it's that full deal, I'm not sure that that's a tradable contract down the road. And I look at what this team looks like. Anthony Davis is a very, very good player. Kyrie Irving, very, very good player. Those guys are often injured, unfortunately, and on the other side of 30. And we talked about potential 2 timeline types of things.
I hate those
with the Atlanta Hawks. I do too, because it doesn't often work out. Like, it very, very rarely works out. And right now, we don't know what Cooper Flagg is going to be. We all think he's going to be really good. He's never actually played in an NBA game yet, but I do think it is fair to assume that he's going to be just a really good NBA player. Maybe not a super duper star, but he should be a pretty good player. If he does reach that superstar height early in his career, this all looks great. But if he needs time to develop, which more often than not for 18, 19-year-old kids is something that you do need, I wonder if the rest of this roster is going to need to be changed over before Cooper Flagg is really ready to lead a team into championship contention. And I think it becomes really painful if you build an old team around a young star, because look no further than what the Milwaukee Bucks are going through right now. The reason that situation is painful, and yes, they won a title and that makes everything worth it. But Giannis has been the best player there for a long time, obviously. And all of the other good players were older than him. And that does become, to a certain extent, a difficult way to build your team because those players age out. And then you have a difficult situation where you still have a superstar that is at the top of his game and ready to be winning championships, but you might not have enough around him. And I wonder if Dallas could be dealing with that one day.
I think they clearly are betting Flag will peak fast enough to offset any decline from their current very talented vets, which I guess I get, but that is risky. Like you said, you don't know. I think you do too, that he will be awesome, but how long will that take? Right. Rookies are usually bad. Even Wemby, who was pretty good, was still like the 50th, 60th, 70th best player as a rookie. Like you just never know. And then you have another year. Is Kyrie going to be good coming off of this? So that's part one, is they're already kind of trickling down two timelines. Now, PJ Washington's 27. It's not like his age restricts him from being on either path, but I would say two things are interesting to me here. One is, the Mavs already have all of the following players: Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, Dwight Powell, Najee Marshall, and Caleb Martin. One of those guys just like, and even probably two, won't play if they're healthy, like in a game. Like that's too many guys. And they're all like mostly positive value contracts. It's not the end of the world, but like what are you doing with all these front court pieces? At some point, you're wasting your own resources by doing so. I think PJ Washington's probably the third or fourth best guy of that group. Great, he should play. But that's too many guys. That just is. I think they know that, and we'll get to more about that in just a second. So that's something to keep an eye on, is if they extend him, who is the odd man out of that group, because there might have to be one. The other part of this is, Danny, we are less than 6 months until the trade deadline. So if PJ Washington gets more than a 20% raise and has raises over 5%, he can't be traded this season at all, which might not matter to them, but that's always such an interesting thing when guys extend this late. Lauri Markkanen last year, TJ McConnell with the Pacers 2 years ago, for example. So that's another thing. They want to do that to take him out of trades because, Danny, let's get really dorky if you don't mind. We all saw the report. They agreed to a contract with one Dante Exum. Good player. They should want Dante Exum on their team. They need guards, as we just talked about. They have a lot of front court guys. However, they already have 15 players on their team. And Brandon Williams is the only non-guaranteed guy. He's good, and he's a guard. They have to figure out how to get rid of someone to fit in Dante Exum. So I don't know who they would get rid of. I have a guess, but extending a front court player and making him off the table certainly plays into that. So I'm very curious what the Mavs are going to do, because they clearly have to make a move. They have to get Dante Exum onto their team.
Who is your guess? I'm very curious who you think is the guy that's going to be gone.
I have two guesses. My top guess would be Olivier Maxence Prosper. I'll just call him Omax the rest of the way. He's clearly the odd man out. He hasn't panned out the way that they hoped he would. They got him basically for free, right? In that Rashawn Holmes trade, I believe it was, a few years ago with the Kings. So like, it's fine to just take the first. I'm not saying they did anything wrong here, but he's never really panned out for them. They don't have minutes for him. They have other young forwards to now invest time into. And he might be the guy that could get off of pretty cleanly, like almost maybe a team would like just take him. The other guy would obviously be Dwight Powell because of the number of centers they have. He's been with the Mavs since you and I were like 20 years old, which is hilarious. But you know, he's like their third center. He's 34. I think he's expiring this year. He only makes $4 million. It might be easy to get off of him as well. But those would be the two if they don't just want to waive Brandon Williams to bring in Exum.
Yeah, I think either of those guys makes sense. I do look at their front court situation, though, and you name so many of those guys, and they are all, for the most part, good players. But the other thing I think they have in common is they are almost all dealing with some sort of injury at some other time, right? Like you look at Derek Lively, who I think is a really nice young player. He's not played a lot of basketball games because he spent most of his young career on the sideline because he's been injured. Obviously, Anthony Davis is somebody that has dealt with his own injury issues. And I mean, the Dallas Mavericks will always have that first half that he played in the first game since they traded Luka Doncic for him. But after that, he dealt with injuries the entire time. So I do wonder if they view front court depth just as a little bit more important in Dallas, given what the injury history is for most of the guys that they have in the front court.
Several teams still just need players to like field the roster this season. I think the Warriors are obviously holding up a lot. They obviously need players. The Knicks will need players. The Wolves need a player. I think you could tell me the Cavs still need a player. I don't know if they can afford.
Have 13 guys on standard contracts right now. I
don't think they could afford Omax or Dwight Powell.
Probably they are in the market for minimum contract players, potentially on a non-guaranteed contract.
Yeah, Detroit and Philly have a spot available. Like there's and of course, like the Nets might just take him for a second and then just dump him at some point anyway, like they might do with Haywood Highsmith. So there's like places for them to send these guys. There's no rush. They don't have to do it before training camp. If somebody gets hurt, great, you can just figure it out. But they will do something of like, I don't think Omax is that good now, but like he's of note. He doesn't totally suck. Like Dwight Powell might be a backup center kind of guy. Like they're going to have to move something real to do what they want to do, which is fine. I don't think they've like screwed themselves or anything, but that in cahoots with PJ Washington being extension eligible and untradeable if it happens. Very interesting to me, Danny Cunningham. Keep your eye on the Mavs. Everybody's talking about the restricted free agents, the Warriors, what's going to happen. The Dallas Mavericks, you intrigue me. So do the Nets, who have not signed Zaire Williams or Daron Sharp yet, but everybody gets why they have cap space.
Or Cam Thomas.
Yes, and Cam Thomas. Man, all these are still, this is really late in the offseason with a lot still hanging in the air, but the Mavs are sneaking past everybody, I think. Let's talk. It's our favorite thing to do on these Wednesdays, this or that. We did the Cavs and Knicks last week without you, Danny. We did the Lakers and Clippers before that. This time, who will push for second in the West? The top two candidates, Denver and Houston. We will compare them. Coming up to close out today's Lockdown NBA Game Night. And we're back here on Lockdown NBA Game Night. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Our second listen could be Locked On Rockets or Locked On Nuggets. To hear more about the teams we're about to talk about, check out the listener survey so you can contribute to what we're doing here at Locked On. Let us know how you're feeling about what we do. You can find a link in the show notes of whatever platform you are listening on. Thank you, Danny, for helping. For those of you watching on YouTube, with a lovely banner where you can find it there via that QR code as well. Danny, welcome to the program. Wes and I have started This or That, where we compare two teams that are close in the standings or are considered two of the top things in their market, like the LA teams, like the Cavs and Knicks in the East. And in this one, the race for second in the West has become very interesting. Last year, it was the Rockets. They got better. The Nuggets were right there. They have Jokic. They got better. Those are commonly considered teams 2 and 3, although other teams are still good. First of all, do you agree that those should be teams 2 and 3, or should someone else sneak in there to you?
Yeah, I have those two. I have Denver at 2 in my power rankings, which you can go back and listen to Sunday's edition of Locked On NBA Game Night, where we went through the Western Conference power rankings. And I had Houston number 3. I think that those two teams, Houston might be a team, Tony, that I view with maybe a little bit more regular season upside than Denver. But if we're looking at teams I view most likely to win the title, I would give Denver a little bit of an edge.
I think Clippers or Minnesota could be heard from to get here. Losing Alexander Walker's tough. The Clippers are old. They're going to be very good. And obviously the Lakers have Luka Doncic and LeBron James. I don't know if you heard. The West is going to be
those guys are good.
Great. West is going to be crazy good. However, I agree that these teams should be 2 and 3 for various reasons. The first question Wes and I usually tackle with this is, which team has the best player? Do we even need to waste our time, Danny, with the Rockets and the Nuggets?
I don't think we do. I think we can all agree Nikola Jokic is the best player between these two teams. I think you could do this with Denver and any other team, and we would probably say Nikola Jokic is the best player. So I think
I'd hear arguments if we were talking about the Thunder. I guess Luka and Giannis at their best, but yes, I agree. Very easy. No disrespect to any Rockets player. I think everybody on the Rockets would tell you that Nikola Jokic is better than anyone on their team if you gave them truth serum and asked. And that's the reason the Nuggets are in this conversation. Like they kept up with the champs, with Jokic going crazy and everybody else having like largely up and down series. Some guys were good for most of it. So yeah, no disrespect to Durant, Şengün. I mean, why am I even saying Fred VanVleet? But he's kind of good. Like they're just not as
Thompson. Like they've got really good players. None of those guys are Nikola Jokic.
Yes, this one was easy, but the second one's always where it gets harder. And it's specifically in this case, it's kind of semantical. Co-star, the guy number 2 on a team. I'm curious which team you think has the better co-star and potentially who you even think that player is for whatever team you choose.
So I think right now it's fair to call Kevin Durant the star in Houston. And I think that the answer right now for co-star in Houston might be different than what the answer is at the end of the season, which is why I do think the answer here is probably Jamal Murray in Denver for the better co-star. But I think if you and I were having this conversation 12 months from now, I would probably say it's Houston with Amen Thompson. I think that he has just incredible upside. I view him as somebody that's going to make all NBA teams, plural, and just be that type of player for a long time in this league. He's not there yet. He still needs some offensive development. I think being around Kevin Durant will certainly aid his career on that side of the floor. So right now, I do think it's Denver, but I think a year from now, it's probably Houston.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Murray is obviously the choice in Denver. In the playoffs, he usually rises when he's not hurt. Houston, I think right now I would say that Şengün is better than Murray, but has not had better postseasons than Jamal Murray. So I could hear that argument going kind of either way. But I agree with you that Thompson's going to be heard from in this. Fred VanVleet's a good player too. I think the Thompson twins are good. I have more questions about them than a lot of other people because of their lack of jump shot, both of them right now. I think they're both awesome. Both their teams are clearly better with them on the floor. I think Şengün, for what these teams need and what we're saying about the regular season, is better than Murray for that. Jamal Murray starts every season so slow, man. It's like his thing, and he eventually gets it going. I slightly lean Rockets here. In the postseason, I might pick Murray, but I think I will pick good old Alperen Şengün here. Maybe Şengün's good enough that Kevin Durant becomes the co-star. That seems a little far-fetched to say, but Kevin Durant's going to be, 38 this year, right? Eventually, it's got to happen, right?
I mean, we've said the same thing about LeBron, and the only thing that's ever made him star is acquiring Luka Doncic.
LeBron, second best player on his team for the first time. Could Kevin Durant? Actually, no, he played with Steph. He's been the second best player on the team already. Okay, number 3. This one seems very easy, but I'm curious what you think. Best coach between the Nuggets and the Rockets.
I don't think this is quite to the same level of best player going to Nikola Jokic, but I think Ime Udoka is the very clear answer here in Houston. What he not only did so far in his time in Houston, what he did previously as the head coach of the Boston Celtics. He's been a winner everywhere that he's been. He has done a great job in both places instilling a culture, which, I think is a buzzword that gets thrown around a little bit too frequently, but I do think that he is somebody that has done that. And I think that his teams start to embody his personality as a coach. And yes. I think that has been a very, very good thing, both in Boston when he previously was there and what he's done with the Rockets so far. So considering that, Denver had to fire Michael Malone near the end of last season, like jarringly late in the regular season, I'm going to go with Ime Udoka because he's actually, been a head coach for multiple seasons.
David Adelman, you did a pretty good job, I would say, beating the Clippers, pushing the Nuggets. He deserved the job. That said, there's some pretty good pressure on him. And is it Tenzer, the new head guy in Denver's front office, to look, if Denver's going to fight the accusations of being a cheap team, promoting 2 dudes within, you better be right because your fans are going to notice if that goes poorly. The answer is Ime Udoka to me as well. Culture is an overblown word, but what it means to me in the case of head coaches is your team taking on an identity that we can all see, and it's very obvious, and they all buy into it. The Rockets are gritty and tough on defense and turn that into offense. And they might even be decent on offense this year because they added Kevin Durant and have talent on that end. He is better. Last one here before we pick the better team. Depth. This one would have been really easy last year, but the Nuggets suddenly have a lot of players, Danny. Who's deeper to you?
I think this is the most interesting question of the bunch. And I don't think it's particularly close in terms of how interested I am in all these questions because, I look at what Houston has and I think they've got a lot of really good players. And you're right. Last year, this is not even a discussion because the Denver Nuggets basically had Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, obviously still a very good player. They had half of Michael Porter Jr. because his shoulder didn't work. And they were just trying to figure out ways to string together enough minutes that they could stay competitive when Nikola Jokic was not on the floor. And I don't anticipate that to be the case this year, but I am going to give a slight nod to the Houston Rockets. I love what Denver did this offseason. They're trying their best, I think, to recreate what that championship team was a couple of years ago. Obviously, trading for Cam Johnson, bringing back Bruce Brown. They want to do those things. And I do wonder if the idea of what they did is a little bit better than the actuality of what they did when the teams hit the floor. But I really like some of the young guys that Houston has as depth pieces when you start talking about, Amen Thompson as your 3rd or 4th best player. I think Fred VanVleet is a very good depth piece, even though he is a starter. Tari Eason, Steven Adams. Just go down that list of guys that they have. And I really do like the depth that Houston has.
I only picked the Rockets because I've seen it fit what they do. Don't get me wrong. I think basically anybody can fit with Jokic, but the pivot in spending your money on Michael Porter Jr. to spending your money on Cam Johnson and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Bruce Brown and Jonas Valanciunas is a massive, massive, massive depth upgrade. The Nuggets will have real players on the floor the entire time. Is Michael Malone just furious that he finally gets a team that he would love right after he's not the coach of the Denver Nuggets anymore? But yeah, they have real talent, and Christian Brown, you should have talked about more. He's very good. and he proved in the playoffs last year. Like they're going to be pretty good. They have young guys who could step up at times. I think they are deeper, and there's a chance by the end of the year I'm like, yep, this is more depth that is valuable to their team. But I don't know because I haven't seen a lot of those guys playing their team in their new states. Bruce Brown post-injury, Tim Hardaway Jr. so streaky. Is Jonas Valanciunas' heartedness? That's obviously like a lazy way out of guessing. We'll see how this all pans out. Whereas like with all the Rockets stuff, I've seen it work on that team last year. They were very deep all the time. They could just constantly cycle in good defenders who play hard. Like their 13th and 14th guys are like Aaron Holiday and Jayshawn Tate. Like they're both fine. They're both kind of good. So
right.
I picked the Rockets depth. I picked their co-star. I picked their coach. I guess I slightly lean Houston being better, even though Jokic is so much better than anyone else on the Rockets that I might still pick Denver to have a better record.
I probably lean Houston to have a better regular season record. And if this exercise is only about the regular season, I would lean Houston. But I look at what Denver can do in the postseason. I look at who Nikola Jokic is, and they between these two teams, I think Denver has a better chance to beat Oklahoma City in the playoffs. But I think Houston has a better chance to be the number 2 seed in the Western Conference.
I agree with both of those things. I think they both have a pretty good chance to win a round this year, but God almighty, our matchup's going to be everything in the West. It's going to be a bloodbath. Danny, you need to be freed from the grips of Locked On NBA Game Night, and you need to get out of here tomorrow.
I'm off tomorrow.
For the first time in forever. Tomorrow will get even more. Eurobasket approaches. I believe it starts Thursday, maybe tomorrow. I can't remember, but you're going to hear lots more from around the association right here. And of course, in the same feed, Locked On NBA with Hayes and Matt and Doug every single day. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We will see you very soon.